It's time to look back at the season for the Orlando Magic. They made the playoffs. It's time for us to play the song. Oh, we can't play it. Damn it, Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is not Josh Lloyd, that's just a stage name. My name is Jeff. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at Basketball Monster, and yeah, you can find me on Twitter as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any $5 bet that wins. Yeah, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball. I hit the button a little bit early, so she said. Follow it where you find podcasts. It's free, available, all platforms, thumbs, bangs, bells, comments. We're good. Yesterday, mock draft 2.0. I already hate it. I'm going to change so much of this mock draft. We're going to do another one next week. I'm going to do some big board stuff as well, which is slightly different to the mock draft, and that'll come out in the coming weeks as we sort of ramp towards the live show for the draft. I don't exactly know what I'm doing for the draft because it is now split into the 2 days. I know that we will have a live show for round 1 for sure, and I will probably have a live show for round 2 also. I just haven't worked that out fully yet. You will get information for that coming up really, really soon. We're here to talk in this show, though, about your and my Orlando Magic. Dun, 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 dun. They can't ping me for that, can they? Nah, no way. How's the tone though? I'm on, yeah? I'm right on. Anyway, we're talking Orlando Magic here because they were a team that was, I'm going to show you some numbers and you're going to go, Josh, are you sure? I'm going to say, yeah, I think so. So I looked at them twice because it didn't make sense. Let's take a look at the numbers that I'm waffling on about here. Let's go through the team overview for this last season because they finished 47-35. They weren't even in the play-in. We thought this was the season they would step forward and maybe get play-in, but no, they made the actual playoffs. 47-35 with a plus 2.4 net rating. That's all really good. It's absolutely sticking out like dog's balls what the problem is here, though, or where this team needs, I guess, to go from here to get to that next step, because they're the 22nd best offense in the NBA and the second best defense. And we know that the way this front office works is they love, hey, who's a long boy? Who's a stretchy boy? Who's a boy that can't shoot? They're the guys they get. You're long? Cool. We're in. Can you shoot? No. Well, they sort of tried to address it, I guess, in the draft at pick 11. I thought they made some big blunders in that draft. But we never got to see Jet Howard at all. But this is the problem here, is we've got foundation of pieces. We've got a great scheme. We've got great defense. We just need the offense. Their preseason over-under, 37.5. Another team that basically exceeded it by 10 wins. 9.5 wins above that. I had Orlando at 39-43. So I did go over, but still missed massively. It's very hard to project a 10-win improvement or a 10-win decrease, but we had so many teams that were around that mark this season, year-on-year improvement or decline, that maybe I need to rethink that idea. The draft, pretty straightforward for these guys. They have their own picks. Pick 18, pick 47. I did the mock draft yesterday, and to spoil you, if you haven't seen it, I, at pick 18, selected Bub Carrington for the Magic, 6'5" combo guard out of Pitt, a guy that can shoot and can initiate offense. And there was someone who left a comment on that mock draft. I think it was Tim, actually, who comments a lot and is a great fan of the show, been for a long time. He's like, man, Orlando's got so many point guards. Like, I don't now get behind another point guard. I go, that's sort of true, but they're all bad. Like, Jalen Suggs took a step forward, but he was starting next to Gary Harris. They would fill in with Anthony Black, Mr. Black, who sucked. Markelle Fultz is a free agent. Cole Anthony didn't start a single game and seems to be on the way out there. So there is a lot of point guards there. None of them are good. And needing that shooting, I think, is really key. And someone who can fit next to Jalen Suggs. So that's why I did that. But you're not here to hear me explain the nature of my mock draft. Let's look at starting lineups. Their most common starting group, was actually pretty weird. It was Mr. Black. That didn't work at all. That was a bad Mr. Black. Mr. Black. That's better. Anthony Black, Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, and the Dart himself, Goga Bitadze. That was their most common starting group. So this team improved by 10 wins. They ran out a lineup of Anthony Black and Goga Bitadze starting and still was able to improve that much. That wasn't their best lineup, though. Their best lineup, who played over 100 possessions together, was basically, and by basically I mean like literally exactly, an all-bench unit of Mr. Black, Cole Anthony, that was a good Mr. Black, Cole Anthony, Jingle and Joe Ingles, the author, John Isaac, and Flaming Mo Wagner. Black, Anthony, Ingles, Isaac, and Wagner. Now, a lot of these guys had amazing seasons. Mainly the two forwards there, or the two big men, Isaac and Wagner, unbelievable bench pieces. Cole Anthony was very up and down. Ingles was, and Black was terrible, but that was their best lineup, a plus 22.3 over the course of the season. In terms of free agents, there's two restricted guys coming up. One of them is former first-round pick Chuma Okeke, who was drafted, didn't play his rookie year because of a torn ACL. Sort of started to come on, I would say, year 3 a little bit, but I thought declined pretty significantly. The offense hasn't come along. He's been overtaken by other guys, and I wouldn't have thought that he's a high priority for them to bring back. Maybe they do just because he's a 6'8-ish, 6'9 wing forward with defensive ability, but the offense is a big detriment, and he's not in line to be a huge role guy for this team. The other one is Trevelyan Queen, who's restricted, who's had some moments, but more of a G League level point guard. In terms of the unrestricted guys, here's where it gets really interesting because it is the two guys who, like we talk about the 2022-23 season, so last season, not this one, their starting backcourt was Markelle Fultz and Gaz Harris. Now, they didn't start a huge amount of games this season. Harris, as always, has got to have the injuries. He did start quite a bit, Harris, but Fultz was just bad. Nebulous reporting on his knee injury cost him a bunch of time. When he played, he was terrible. And they're both free agents. I would think that the chance of both of those players, Fultz and Harris, being back is pretty low. The other one is revelation Goga Bitadze. Now, let's also be clear about this. Goga was in their most used starting group. He was also their third-string center because he was worse than Wendell Carter and worse than Mo Wagner over the totality of the season. Now, I like Goga. I liked him a lot at the draft. I would have picked him top 10 in that draft, honestly. I'd have to go back and look at it to know where I would do it if I redrafted him now. But he finally started to show the things that I liked for him coming over. And he's one of those guys, one of those big men coming out of the Adriatic League, and they nearly always have success. One of them who didn't was Ante Zizic, who played for Boston, did nothing, but a lot of these guys who also started slowly. Well, one of them, Nurkic, number one, Jokic, Zubats. Hartenstein didn't play Adriatic. I think he was German League. But anyway, these European centers that take a little bit of time is a common thing. Don't get that twisted. Young, highly drafted centers don't take time. They're either good straight away or they very rarely become good. But these guys from the Adriatic League, that does take them a little bit of time. And Goga, I think if you had, like, let's talk Phoenix, for example, right? If Phoenix had Goga Bitadze as their starting center, how much worse would it be than Jusuf Nurkic? At the respective parts of their careers, age, I'm not, and if we head to next season, I'm not sure it's that big of a difference, honestly. And he's a third string guy. They'd love to bring him back, I think. But teams should make, I believe they should make an aggressive play at Goga. Because at worst, he's a really strong backup. And he is currently the third stringer on this team. That could change because they've got two players with team options. One of them is Jingling Joe, who's got an $11 million team option. I'm not sure with, like, based on his player, I don't think you'd prioritize picking that up. But also, having Joe Ingles there at what is he now, 37? Some shooting, ball handling. He can't do anything like he used to do to that level, but he was still useful enough. And the other one is Mo Wagner, who's got a $7 million team option. So if for some reason they think Mo's not worth 7, and he is, way more than 7. But if they decide they're moving on from that for tax or other cap space reasons, then Goga would be more important to be the backup. But otherwise, they head into the season with Wendell and Mo and Goga all there. Maybe they trade Wendell Carter. I don't know. But it's still a very crowded center situation there. Two players have non-guarantees. One of them is John Isaac, who I believe is fully non-guaranteed because he did not hit the games played requirements over the last few years. It's at $17 million, but given the way that he played this season, they are almost definitely not cutting him. The other one is Caleb Houston, who started some games, a shooting wing, but like honestly, he seems very unscalable at this point. He's heading into year 3. If he gets cut, I don't think it's really going to be the end of the world at all. The two big decisions they're going to have to make, though, are on the expiring contracts, and that is Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner, who are both at the end of the 24-25 season going to be restricted free agents unless they sign a rookie extension. I would imagine that at least Franz gets that done. I don't think he gets full max, which is 5 years, can go to $260 million, I think it is. You won't get that. But does he get 4 years, 3+1 at 150? Maybe? 180? Possibly. Suggs might get 3 years, 120? I don't know. They both, I'll be looking to lock them up. And I think you can get them at below market deals given the cap is going to increase. But people are going to have, as with nearly every contract, they'll have sticker shock, especially if they didn't pay attention to what Jalen Suggs was doing this season for the Magic. Because honestly, he was awesome. And I think most of you know that he was awesome this season, but maybe you don't. That's possible as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The playoffs are here. It's the NBA Finals. The NHL Finals are coming up, and it's winner take all time. And FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That is $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, futures, same game parlays, whatever. It's all there on FanDuel. Whatever sport. Maybe it is Major League Baseball. Maybe it is the NHL playoffs. Maybe it is the NBA playoffs. PGA tournaments, NASCAR, all that stuff's rolling at the moment. You can bet on it all over at FanDuel. So go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. Who are you picking actually for the playoffs? I'm going Dallas in 7. And you can bet on series length and series results and finals MVP, all that stuff's there. Go to FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. Okay, so that's the overview of this team. Let's start looking at the starters. Found it a little bit hard how I was going to designate the starters because there's 4 of them that are really straightforward. And there's that 5th spot, which seemed to rotate with a lot of different players. I could have put Gary Harris in there because he did start quite a bit, but honestly, there's just no fantasy relevance whatsoever to Gaz, and he wasn't absolutely just plugged in as a starter enough that I had to put him there. He's like a way more unavailable and worse Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. The theory of him, fantastic. It fits everything. Right? Hey, he can defend, not as much as he used to. He can shoot, not as well as he used to. Doesn't require the ball, that's still the case. Fits in perfectly, absolutely. Just not available as much as he needs to be. A lot of soft tissue injuries, which is a huge red flag. And some of the shooting metrics have dropped a bit for Gaz over the last couple of years. So I didn't include him in the starting group. But we know the obvious one, so let's start with those guys. Let's start with Franz Wagner, because if you go look at traditional ranking metrics, you will see that he plays out as the best ranked player on this squad. Is that accurate? Yeah, I don't know about that. He's only 22 and a half, so he's still relatively young despite coming out of college as a sophomore. Like I said, heading into year 4, extension eligible, restricted at the end of this year, 32 a night, 72 games. I would have liked that 32 to start pushing to 35, but he had some pretty significant struggles this season. He still finished 83rd in -1. Yahoo ranks him 57th, misleading, 64th in points leagues. His ADP was 67, so I'd say he's probably a marginal letdown at that spot. He averaged almost 20 points with 5 rebounds, almost 4 assists, 1 steal, shooting 48 and 85 with 1.9 turnovers. Here's where the problem is. 57% on 2s is awesome. 28 on 3s. Right? 48% from the field is not dreadful, but it's not great. But he needs to be a 36% three-point shooter. And at the moment, I'm not sure we get there. But if he does do that, then he becomes a 51, 52% field goal guy. He becomes a 22-point scorer. He hits 2 threes a game, and he's a top 40, top 30 guy pretty easily in his prime. But I'm not sure it gets there. I think he's got more in him with rebounds and assists. Steals, I'm not sure that ever gets there. Blocks, no way. It's about getting to the line more and taking and hitting more threes. You're not going to be shocked that the #1 crafted player comparison is a white European forward. and it's Hedo Turkoglu, who was actually a fantasy beast for a few years. Year 2 of Hedo. The next one is really interesting. Well, the next 2, I didn't include them both, but the second best comp was year 4 Jason Tatum, and the third best comp was year 5 Jason Tatum. Franz at the start of last season came out very, very highly, like top 18. When someone says top 18, like I just did, because I'm an idiot, obviously that means 18th. Because you would never, we love ordinality, we love decimals unless you live in America and you want to do 24 inches per pound or whatever system you use. I joke, I do know it. But we love 10s and 5s. So if you say top 10, it could mean that you're 8th or 7th. If you say top 5, you could be 4th. You wouldn't be 3rd because you say top 3. But if I say, hey, he's in the top 12, well, you know where he is? 12th. What an interesting, and by interesting, I mean utterly non-interesting sidebar. But yeah, Jason Tatum, year 4. The advanced stuff, loved him, despite the horrible shooting. 94th percentile for Franz in EPM, 92nd in CPM. That's huge, yeah? This is a guy that should push towards All-Stars in a couple of years. But he, 20th percentile in three-point attempt rate. Yeah, part of that is because he didn't hit them. But he needs to get up more of them. He needs to be one of the guys that helps space for this team. You can't have both him and Paolo be shaky shooters. Along with Mr. Black and their center and whatever. Somebody needs to shoot. I'm excited about him still. I'm not sure I have that top 18 grade on him for Dynasty anymore because that shooting decline is really concerning. And we've yet to see any sort of consistency that shows us that he is a good shooter yet. It could come, but we haven't seen it. Let's talk about their actual best player. And you'll say, well, actually, Josh in 9-cat is way worse. He's almost unrosterable. And that's clearly false. It's Paolo Banchero, who's only 21. He played 80 games. He played 35 minutes a night. We love all of that. Last season, he had that horrible February dip where he had that thumb or a wrist problem where he shot 4% from 3 for a month, and it killed all his numbers. I'm not here to tell you that he's hyper efficient because he's not, but there's a huge disconnect between the value. Look at this. He was 111th on Yahoo, and he played 80 games. And Yahoo uses totals. So he played 80 games and still only 111th. Yet, if you use -1 per game, 62nd. Because the game and his value is one that gets misevaluated using these traditional, and I've gone into so many ways of talking about the traditional metrics and how they're wrong and how you need to interpret them. But if you look at this and that, 111th with 80 games, that would suggest that he's 150th on a Yahoo per game basis, which means you don't roster him, which obviously is not true. He was 41st in points, he had an ADP of 58, so bang on there. 22.5 points with 7 rebounds and 5.5 assists out of your power forward with 1.5 threes. Part of the problem with Blake Griffin here, Julius Randle, is he never gets defensive numbers. 0.9 steals, 0.6 blocks. He's bad at the line, 73%. He's bad from the field, 46%. He's a high turnover player. He shot under 50% on 2s and shot 34% on 3s. There was improvement. There were encouraging signs. The percentages did improve. I'm not convinced he's ever going to be a good defensive level player, but I do think we can get to a 36% three-point shooting season from Paolo, a 53 to 54 two-point guy, which pushes him to a 50% overall shooter. Maybe I think Blake Griffin career analog is exactly what we're looking at Paolo, except Paolo comes in with a much better assists and passing baseline. And look at the way Blake improved his shooting, his free throw numbers over the course of his career. There is a chance to me that Paolo can be a 51-83 player in his career, averaging 26-9, 26-8, 6, a steal, 0.7 blocks. That's a top 20-ish player. Have a look who's in your league. Have a look how they adhere to ranking numbers. Because in Dynasty, there is so much here still. His best 2 comps, Grant Hill rookie season, and we know that Grant Hill was awesome. He was rookie of the year. And year 2, Zion Williamson, which should have been the season that Zion was All-NBA and got robbed by, interestingly enough, Julius Randle, who is often comped to Paolo Banchero. So Grant Hill and Zion, pretty good company to keep there. In saying all of that, the advanced impact metrics are way behind on Paolo. They all say that Franz Wagner, way more impactful. Jalen Suggs, Jonathan Isaac, more impactful. Paolo's 75th percentile EPM, 66th on Crafted. Both of them in agreement that his impact wasn't as high as maybe we think it is. And maybe he is a PRA guy, points, rebounds, assists. What I don't like is that C turnover number there, which is the creation turnover, which isn't just based on your turnover percentage. It's based on the amount of creation you're doing. And he's still really low, 31st percentile. So for even taking into account the volume that he has to do it at, the turnover numbers are still pretty bad. And he needs to get that under control, absolutely. Because not only does it hurt his fantasy game if you care about turnovers, but it also hurts his team. And in the end, if that becomes more of a persistent problem, then things do change in the way that a team structures itself and where they position him, I guess, in the overall hierarchy of their squad. Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. We're here and we are stressed. Big stress, small stress. There's so many different things that can impact us. And if we keep all of that bottled up, it can really impact us negatively. Therapy can be a safe space to get that sort of stuff off your chest and to figure out how to work through whatever it is that is weighing you down. So you get out there, you share your things that are bothering you, stuff with your family, partner, kids, work, whatever it is. Maybe it's something small. Maybe you don't like the way that the Orlando Magic front office deprioritizes shooting. And that might seem small to you because it is, but it still can impact you. And we always need to be able to talk through this stuff, again, to someone who's unbiased in your life. So get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That is betterhelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, that is those two players done. Let's go to a huge success, someone that I don't actually remember where I had him, but I think he might have been my most improved player. It would have been Jalen Johnson, but he didn't qualify, and that's Jalen Suggs. Suggs was a player that, I'll be honest with you, I thought the Toronto Raptors should have taken him at pick 4 over Scotty Barnes. Very obviously wrong, yeah? Went at 5 in that draft and looked like a bust. Looked like he was the worst of their 2 top 8 picks. Top 8, yeah? Because Franz Wagner went at 8. But he was huge in this year. Year 3 for Jalen Suggs. He started off playing at the 2. He was one of the best defensive players in the entire NBA. He improved his offense a lot as well. He's only 23. 75 games, 27 minutes. That 27 minutes, there's a few reasons there. Injuries, he hurt his ankle a million times. Foul trouble, and just the energy he goes at. A little bit like Alex Caruso in Chicago does limit that upside. But look at that. You go, there's so much meat on the bone. There's 6 more minutes, 7 more minutes easily he can get. And maybe that comes this year. He finished 108th in -1 rankings. Yahoo overall has got him 75th. Again, clearly false. And 137th in points. So he's not an impact player in points. But don't dismiss this if you're a points league guy, because that 27 minutes turns to 33 minutes. Then we're talking about a top 100 points league player. He only averaged 12.5 points with 2 threes, 3 rebounds and 3 assists. Like, they're not spectacular, but 1.4 steals, 0.6 blocks, shot 40% on his threes, 47 overall and 76 from the line. There is nothing super spectacular there. It is really driven by the steal numbers, absolutely. But I think that, is he ever going to be a 20-point game guy? No, I don't think so. But could he be 15 points, 2.5 threes, 3 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, 50 and 80? Peak Suggs? Yes. I don't know about these comps. Year 3 of Corey Brewer, I don't think they're anything alike as players, but the statistical shape of them compared. And then old mate Don Collins, the Don. Year 2 of him, which is back in 1982. We don't really need to worry about too much of that. But what we need to tell you is how good Suggsy was. 93rd percentile EPM, 86th in CPM. And what I wanted to focus on with those advanced numbers is, in terms of offensive load, only 65th percentile. So we saw big breakouts, big improvement in shooting, almost a top 100 season. Didn't do anything. You can tell that by averaging 12.5 points and 3 assists. They're not good numbers. They're not huge numbers at all. So I'm not here to tell you that Suggs is going to explode into this bigger offensive load type scenario. I think he's got the ability to do way more than he's doing. And that's going to depend a lot on A, where his growth is, B, how they structure this team, all of that stuff. But I think we saw sort of tip of the iceberg stuff from Suggs. I think that he moves into this spot where he's clearly part of their, I won't say big three because that's a stupid term, but part of their main three, Suggs, Wagner, Banchero. And with maybe Fultz out of there, maybe Suggs being locked in 30-plus minutes starter, we get some of that offensive responsibility upping, and that pushes him into a clear top 100 player. Maybe. I'm hopeful of it. I was hopeful about Wendell Carter Jr. I like Wendell Carter Jr. I thought that he was misused by old mate Jim Boylan. Did I say Boylan? It sounded like it, but I meant to say Boylan for the Bulls. He lost all confidence. He came into the NBA, he was blocking shots, he passed, he shot. Jim Boylan said, you can shoot, please don't ever do it. I know you can pass, but we'd rather you never touch it. And he lost everything. And it took a little bit of time to get some of that stuff back in Orlando. Now, some of it hasn't returned. This man used to block a million shots. He doesn't ever anymore. I don't know why. But he's only 25. He only played 26 minutes a night, and there were plenty of times this season where he was not the best center on this team. He's a little bit undersized. I do think, as much as I do like Wendell Carter, I do think that the best version of the Magic has an upgrade at that position, and he settles into an overall 23-minute bench role at some stage. I do think that happens. And a lot of the things that I liked from Wendell, we are 5 years in or whatever we are now, I'm not sure they're coming. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more in a sec. He averaged 11 and 7 in those 26 minutes with almost 2 assists and 1.2 threes, but 0.6 steals and 0.5 blocks. 0.5 blocks, you're a center who actually used to block shots. But he shot 37 on his threes, 63 on his twos, overall 53% shooting with 69 from the line. What I wanted to talk about is the two blokes that he compared with. Year 3 of Al Horford and year 7 of Jermaine O'Neal. Now, part of the appeal for me of Wendell was Al Horford. The big man who can shoot. Now, Horford obviously didn't shoot early in his career, but a big man who shoots, protects the rim, defends, perimeter at the rim, and can pass. But so many of these things have disappeared. He was still impactful, allegedly. Not allegedly, the number's there. But you know that he sucked so much this season. He was 174th in -1 rankings, Wendell Carter. He was picked at 105, a massive bust. He'd had multiple top 100 seasons. Everything just sort of disappeared. The scoring was down. The defense, non-existent. His assist numbers lower. The free throws were terrible. And I don't really know what to assign all that to. He also copped early injuries, which meant that Goga got those opportunities. And Wendell never fully recovered from that. But 88th percentile EPM, 81st CPM. Part of the issue was, we can look at this stuff and the shooting and 37% from 3 and 53% from the field overall, but his shooting quality, the metric that values or views how good of a shooter you are, 32nd percentile. And I think most people that had him on their fantasy team will go, yeah, I remember he couldn't hit anything, couldn't hit free throws, couldn't hit anything, even though overall 53% is a good number. But there's a lot of context behind that. So now we talk about the fifth starter. Who the hell was that? Well, I'll go with the guy that we thought would be the fifth starter to begin the season, and that's Markelle Fultz. And honestly, one of the biggest busts of the year. Doesn't really get talked about how much of a bust he was, but he was terrible. And now he's a free agent. 26 years of age. He only played 43 games and only 21 minutes a night. I was all about grabbing Fultz around pick 100 in an ADP of 95. I go, there's not many starting point guards left at this spot. And Fultz came in, would he play one game and then got scratched pre-game the next one with knee soreness, and they never told us anything about it. And he missed, 4 weeks, and he came back and he missed again. And in the end, 43 games, half the season. And played a reserve role in terms of minutes. He finished 246th in -1 rankings. 223rd in points leagues. Bro, what? His numbers, how do they don't even compare to what he did the year before. And it's not only just that the minutes were down. 8, 3, and 3 he averaged with 1 steal. He never takes threes anymore. That part's done. He was a 40% three-point shooter in Washington in college. And took a lot of them. And it's been ruined. 47 from the field, 70 from the line. He actually fixed that the year before, but now back to being a bad free throw shooter. 49% on twos, didn't finish well. 22% on threes, bad, never took them. And the player comps are actually horrific. Caleb Martin, year 2, when he played for Charlotte, and Ish Smith, year 4. One of the more... Is it just the knee? Because otherwise it's unexplainable what happened. For the second time in his career. 29th percentile EPM, 47th in CPM. His free throw attempt rate is in the 10th percentile. Bro just never got to the rim, never took free throws. Part of his appeal was, okay, you're not going to take threes? Cool. You're going to hit the rim. You're going to get there hard. You're going to have really high field goal percentage as a point guard. No, that just all disappeared as well. He lost all confidence again. Obviously, there is, I won't say blame, but it's not like all not his fault. Because if you are consistently losing this level of confidence in your ability multiple times in your career on the back of injuries, well, there is something in the way that you are as a person that creates that. That's not to say that that's his fault, because you can't really control that much. Or it's not to say even that it's a negative, but when we're reviewing it from a basketball or a fantasy perspective, then it is a negative. Because we go, like, if something happens, like in your confidence goes, I can't have that confidence back in you. And maybe he gets it back, but maybe it takes 3 years to get back to that. I don't know. But it obviously was really, really a poor season. Speaking of poor seasons, let's talk about their first round pick, number 6, Mr. Black. Anthony Black. Now, again, I tell you this all the time. Understand your biases. Understand my biases. Understand everyone's biases where you take information from or you read or whatever. Because it's always going to be there. I did not have Anthony Black. Most people did have Anthony Black high on their draft boards. I did not. There were times where I had him out of the lottery, and I definitely had him out of the top 10, and he was not my number 1 point guard in last year's draft. It depends how you view, like, obviously Scoot was, but like I had Scoot and a man ahead of him. I had Kaysen Wallace ahead of him. I was not an Anthony Black guy. So when they took him at 6, I said, that's a terrible pick. And then when I see him play this year, I go, yeah, it was a terrible pick. It was obviously a terrible pick. I don't believe in Anthony Black. But that is not to say that Anthony Black can't improve. But I'm coming from a baseline of like, I don't believe. See, that is why I don't believe. So you're going to doubly have to prove it to me now. But you might have come in with like, man, he's awesome. He'll learn to shoot. He's big. He's got this great defense. Yeah, that was just a rookie blip. Maybe he'll be better. And that leads to 2 completely divergent opinions on where Black is. One thing we will have to agree on was that he was bad. He's only 20. He played 69 games. He played 17 minutes a night. And I'll be honest with you, if they didn't have injuries, he would not have played. He was not in the rotation. And he did the thing where the starter got hurt, Fultz. So they brought the third stringer into the starting lineup. Cole Anthony started 0 games. And Black was like the Goga replacement, the Goga for point guards, and played 20 minutes or so and look, just was bad. 378th in -1. He averaged 5 points with 2 rebounds and 1.3 assists, half a steal in those 17 minutes, 0.3 blocks, which again, let's just double those 17 minutes, right? 9 points, 1 3, 4 rebounds, 2.6 assists, 1 steal in 34 minutes. They are horrid numbers. He shot 47 from the field, 61 from the line. He did shoot 39% from 3, which is encouraging, and 51% from 2, but overall efficiency is rough. The 2 player comps for him, it's not even a guy where you go, oh yeah, but he really developed. Because number 1 was KJ McDaniels. Remember him? Rookie year KJ McDaniels for Philadelphia, who started off on that Process Sixers team blocking everything as a 6'7" wing, got traded to Houston, and then bro really didn't ever play again. And the other one was Archie Goodwin, a guard who could not shoot, who had athleticism, who had a couple of moments on the moribund Suns teams as a late Kentucky, he's a Kentucky guard we never talk about who struggled because he was bad. And then he was out of the league in like year 2. They are horrible comparisons. Now, Black is not going to be out of the league in 2 years, but they are horrible comparisons. 34th percentile EPM, 27th in CPM. One thing, if you want to be on the positive side of things, there you go, well, they just didn't let him do anything. Yeah, they didn't because he was bad, but he didn't. Offensive load, 20th percentile. And he's supposed to be a point guard. He just never got to do anything. He never had any responsibilities offensively. He was out there to defend. He was all right at it. Wouldn't say he was great, but he was all right. But did nothing offensively. So he's still, again, he was bad. But maybe he was bad because we just never got a chance to see him do anything. So that's the glass half full side of that. I'm not going to write him off. He was a top 6 pick. To me, he's a top 15 pick in that draft. But young guards, let's see what happens. But I come from a place where I didn't believe, and that has been further strengthened through his rookie season. They are the guys that I classified as starters. Let's talk about some other players of note. Let's go to a guy that I thought was a really weird season for Cole Anthony. Anthony didn't start a single game, despite all the injuries to Markelle Fultz and Gary Harris. He's one of those players, and I had a group of these guys before last season. Kobe White, Emmanuel Quickley, Quentin Grimes, and Cole Anthony. Players, there's maybe someone else in there that I can't remember, but they're the 4 that I mainly looked at. Guys who are on the bench. I was like, if they get into a bigger role, I really think they're going to take off. 2 of those worked out. Kobe White, huge. Emmanuel Quickley in Toronto, massive. Quentin Grimes went to Detroit, played about 2 games. Big regression from Grimes this season. Really not good. But his knee was a real problem. And then Cole Anthony started out the season as honestly the favorite for 6th man of the year. And then by the end of the year was just barely playing. I only played 22 minutes a night despite 81 games. He was there all the time. They just didn't ever extend him. 192nd in -1. He was drafted in 25% of leagues at 146. 11.6 points with 4 rebounds and 3 assists and 0.8 steals. He shot 34 from 3 and only 49 from 2. And there's your problem. There's your furphy. Just 43% overall. Like, if you're going to be this Jordan Clarkson analog, you need to either have extreme volume, and he didn't, or you need to be extremely efficient, and he wasn't. 0.8 steals per 22 minutes is not a bad number. I thought he improved his defense quite a bit. But the overall lack of efficiency and the seeming lack of faith from this squad or this team is a real problem. Now, he still fits into my group of what if he went, set the Spurs, so they don't draft a point guard or they don't want to give the reins to a point guard. Could you get Cole Anthony for like a top 40 second round or 2 seconds? I think you might. I would love that for him. I think it would be awesome in that situation. But who knows if that's going to happen ever. The 2 comparisons for him this season are horrendous. Year 4 of the worst player in the NBA, Taylor Horton-Tucker. And year 3 of one of the worst shooting wings, who's a shooting guard who was honestly a center, and that's MC Hamidou Diallo, year 3 of him. That's hard. Like, what is that? What I do look at that and go, those guys made their hay defensively. Horton-Tucker a little bit, but like Diallo was strong defensively. And that's where Anthony did improve. 47th percentile EPM, 50th in CPM. He also, despite the threes maybe because of the threes not going in, he didn't take threes. His 3-point attempt rate was 39th percentile. Like, I think you had to find a way to differentiate yourself on a team that needed 3-point. He needed to take more of them. So that's him and Franz who could profile as shooting options. Now, is part of that Jacques Vaughn's coaching? Possibly or probably, but they got to get more shots up, man. So overall, a really, really disappointing season from Cole. I'm still putting him into that bucket, and I need to really look at who I can put in that bucket now, because I think a lot of the names have been exhausted out of it. These like point guards who I think have this real ability to start somewhere, but they're sort of hidden. But yeah, he's a really disappointing season. What about this guy? Because this was the opposite of disappointing. Flaming Mo Wagner. People laugh at him like, he's just there, he's Franz's brother. Oh, look at this guy, always starting something. And that's true. But he was legitimately, should have been, he wasn't, but he should have been, more so in the discussion for 6th man of the year, because there was not a better, more efficient reserve big man than what Mo Wagner does. And it's not because he is a typical European big man, or our stereotype maybe instead of typical. He wasn't out there just bombing threes. He did it by finishing at the rim. There were stretches where Mo Wagner, when Wendell Carter was out, both him and Bitadze were usable for standard leagues. The minutes fluctuated a bit, but Wagner established himself as the backup. He also played a little bit alongside Wendell. He's 27, 80 games, 18 minutes. He finished 249th, but Yahoo ranks him 150th again. Lol. 11 points, half a 3, 4 rebounds, half a steal, 0.3 blocks. Now, 0.3 blocks out of your center is horrific, obviously. 4 rebounds in 18 minutes is nothing spectacular. But 60% from the field, 81% from the line, 67% on twos. One of the most efficient players in the entire NBA. His 2-player comps, Dino Raja, rookie year, and Sharif Abdul-Rahim, year 8. 84th percentile EPM, 62nd CPM. You'll notice that I believe that number is higher than Paolo Banchero's EPM. Rim defense is where we get the problem, though. 41st percentile. He doesn't work like a center. He works basically the way that Montrezl Harrell worked. Defense, never heard of her. Let's just score unbelievably efficiently, and that's what he did. He was a key part of so many great lineups the Magic would run out there. They will almost definitely guarantee that $7 million. And he will be useful at times in fantasy, but way more useful for the Magic in real life because he's never going to push into a gigantic role. Speaking of pushing to gigantic roles, I don't know that Jonathan Isaac ever does it, but we know what will happen if he does. Honestly, it's really amazing that we saw him play 58 games this season. He's 26. He's still like pre-prime. He only played 16 minutes a night. He actually played some back-to-backs. He had some injuries, as he always does. But that's almost the best-case scenario. He played backup center a bit. There were some problems with him in the playoffs, but whatever. 196th overall. People drafted him. 3% of leagues drafted him. That's a bit weird. Averaged 7 and 4.5 in those 16 minutes with 0.7 steals and 1.2 blocks, and that's it. That's what he is. He's not a points league guy. He's a category league player. Let's double the 16 minutes. Let's make it 32 minutes. 1.4 steals, 2.4 blocks. Insane numbers. 14 points, 9 rebounds, 1.4 threes. Top 40 player. But he's never going to play 32 minutes. I don't think that body can ever handle that. If he was a 23-minute-a-night player, we would draft him and we would use him. But I'm not even sure he gets to that. He shot 38 on his threes, 60 on his twos, like 51 and 72 as his percentages, hyper efficient. Yes, half a turnover, but only half an assist. Not good. Best comps, year 5 of Marcus Camby and year 6 of Sean Bradley. That's in Dallas for Bradley. 94th percentile EPM and 97th CPM. And in crafted defensive plus minus, 100th percentile, the best of the best defender in the NBA. We know this. Unbelievably good defender. If you want to take him with the last pick in a draft, totally okay. And you expect 24 minutes, that's fine. But with Paolo there, with Franz there, and Isaac not being a full-time center, it is hard to see a 27-minute-a-night scenario. It's hard to see 23 minutes a night with his injuries and with the players in front of him. Things might have to change in terms of if someone gets hurt or whatever, maybe things break through. And we know the ability's there. But the trust can't be there. And the situation, despite him being awesome for this team, is not super conducive to if he stays healthy, he's easily playing 30, because I'm not sure that's true. The last player I want to talk about here is another big man, and it is the Dart, Goga Bitadze, who was a guy that we could roster early on when Wendell Carter was out. Well, that's not true. Or maybe that's not true. That sounds like a confusing statement. Because when Wendell went down, Mo Wagner was the immediate pickup. Goga had 1 or 2 good games and sort of faded away. But towards the end of Wendell's absence, Goga's minutes pushed back up and he did become the clear choice over Mo Wagner. Now, of course, when they all got healthy, Goga was out of the lineup again. He only played 62 games at 15 minutes. He's only 25. He's 230th in -1, averaging 5 points and 5 rebounds in those 15 minutes with 1.2 blocks. Easy game, the starting game, the double game. Let's play 30 minutes. It doesn't work this way, but it's an easy way to look at it. 10 and 9, 2.6 assists, a steal, 2.4 blocks. Awesome, top 100 very comfortably. 60 from the field, 66 from the line. Dabbled a little bit with shooting threes, not really. I'm not sure he gets that back. He did flash that in the Adriatic League. I think, did he play for Mega? I'm pretty sure he did. The 2 comps for him, year 4 Jakob Poeltl makes sense. Rebound, shot blocking, big man, bad free throws, good field goal percentage, really good defender. The second one is year 2 of Joakim Noah. Now, Goga you wouldn't consider him a passer, but 1.3 assists in 15 minutes is interesting. Noah won defensive player of the year. It's a lie opening. 83rd percentile for Goga in EPM and 85th in CPM. Hugely impactful, but just not enough minutes to get everyone in because, again, Wendell and Mo Wagner were also hugely impactful. His rim frequency, which is the frequency with which you're protecting the rim and contesting shots, 93rd percentile. He just gets up and blocks shots, and he makes it his mission to protect the rim. And that's where you get these big block numbers coming from Goga. Not really sure where he ends up. He's one of those ones, a little bit, didn't play there, but a little bit like Isaiah Hartenstein. We need to see where he ends up, Goga. Because the fantasy value is there. The statistical profile is there. The impact stats are there. The defensive ability is there. It's about finding this role, getting trust from a coach or a new coach or whatever, and then white-anting your way into a bigger role. We do not give up on Goga for Dynasty. We'll see if anything develops this season, but the framework is there. And that's the Orlando Magic. So, what did you think of the Magic? What do you think they do in this offseason? Do they go, we made the playoffs, let's go in? Let's trade? Let's bring some other big names in there? Do they go after Klay Thompson? Think it'll be a mistake. Do they go after Malik Monk? Could be a massive W. Do they try and throw their hat in the ring for a Trae Young trade? Do they look at Zach LaVine? Does he help them? What do they need? Do they need to push Franz to be the third offensive guy? Does Paolo need a reduction in usage and someone else to handle that load? Maybe. Or do they just play it safe, use pick 18 and slowly develop with their guys? While you're making that comment, hit thumbs up on the video. Don't hit thumbs down, but as I heard someone on the Stochastic YouTube channel, so if you're going to hit the thumbs down, make sure you hit it twice. Really show me that you don't like it. And so I appreciate that. Bells, comments, subscriptions, double bangs. We're done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.